Sam Altman is back as the CEO of OpenAI following that whirlwind of chaos last week, of which I think we did a very good job covering it. OpenAI's board is getting a major rehaul with nearly all of its members replaced. Not all of them, though. The initial board includes Brett Taylor as chairman, former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, where did he come from, and Adam D'Angelo, the only current board member remaining. I understand he was quite stubborn about that. Sam appears to be ready to head back to work, posting on X with the new board and with Satya's support. I'm looking forward to returning to OpenAI and building on our strong partnership with Microsoft. It was interesting. That was his first tweet. How do you look at it looking back at it? Who's the winners, losers, etc.? I hate to use that reductive a term, but a lot was happening here.
I think in the fullness of time, the thing that happened here, or what I've been thinking a lot about, is that if you think about the initial mission of OpenAI, I don't even think it was supposed to be a company. I think they initially saw it as a research institute or a think tank that would study and analyze and make recommendations around the possibilities and, more importantly, the dangers of AI. And then they discovered we're really good at this, and then all of a sudden it was a company that became worth $90 billion. So if you look at the shareholder side of this and the products and the value, the economic value they create, call that capital. And then you look at the structure, and a big component of the structure and a big part of their mission was to think about humanity, or AI in the context of humanity. So at a very reductive analysis, you have capital versus humanity. And I would argue that capital literally smothered humanity in its sleep. Whether you think it was a good decision or a bad decision, but when there was $90 billion in an amazing product and the leader in the most exciting new technology emerged, all that fun, nice stuff, important stuff about humanity and the fears of AI, that shit got smothered in its sleep.
I'm not sure it got smothered, Scott. I think it got, let's put this over. I get it. It's like, let's put this over here on the shelf.
It'll just be very interesting to see how this moment ages, because and it all comes back to the same thing for me, and that is for-profit companies are so amazing at generating profits, they shouldn't be trusted to anything else. They shouldn't be trusted to do anything else.
Fair.
What are they called? Social purpose companies? No, private benefit, social benefit companies, ESG investing. I think it's the ultimate Sheryl Sandbergian move, where we're going to pretend that capitalism and the market can work things out on their own. That when people buy Patagonia, or they buy dolphin-friendly tuna, or they learn about transparency, or some fake organization says that Southwest Airlines is an ESG investment, it dilutes the need for democratic institutions to regulate these organizations.
You picked one company who I do think really
ridiculously
does
convoluted
walk that talk.
Byzantine
Patagonia. I think that
Patagonia.
people who
Agree.
buy there buy there
they
because
walk the
of
walk.
that. I think that's a successful version of that. But go ahead.
And so does Ben & Jerry's. I would argue that constitutes less than 0.1% of the market.
Yes, I would agree.
The majority of research shows around ESG or social-minded companies, they're tiebreakers. The consumers aren't willing to pay for them, but they will, if they're the exact same product at the exact same price, they'll go with the one that doesn't, that lets dolphins out of its nets or whatever. But this is, and I think it's time we come to grips with the fact that a lot of this, social benefit organization or ESG jazz hands is just that. To that point, there should be an FDA that says when your mom rewrites an opinion on a failed drug and then takes it public with a SPAC and you sell all of your shit to get $1 billion, maybe there should be more government oversight. I worry that at the end of the day, democratic institutions need to regulate these companies. And that all these Byzantine structures and virtue signaling are nothing but a Sandbergian move to serve as a weapon of mass distraction from the fact that for-profit companies are this amazing part of capitalism. They grow, they innovate, they're full body contact.
So let's get the government in there, in other words.
And then let's tax them at a fair rate and not let them take their IP offshore so they can avoid taxes. And then let's use those taxes to hire outstanding people who try to prevent a tragedy to the commons and regulate these companies.
Yep, I agree. Let me ask you a different question, though, is board structure. Obviously, Microsoft is getting a board seat. Satya Nadella posted about board changes, noting, we believe this is the first essential step, the path to more stable, well-informed, and effective governance. That was the shot across the bow. for him, and like we're going to be watching. Like we get. I think a lot of people were surprised they didn't have a seat at all, or have even an observer status. I think that was he really pulled the iron out of the fire, as they say here, of his investment in terms of getting this back in Sam's hands. But he definitely, if that had not turned out that way, it would have been very bad for Microsoft, as you saw on Friday after he was fired, that they did not have their hands around this in the way they needed to. It'll be interesting to see if they get a board seat. The other women that were floated at one point was Lorraine Powell-Jobs, Marissa Mayer, Condoleezza Rice. Some of these were rejected because they were too close to Sam. It'll be interesting to see who they bring to the board. I put a list up many people. There's lots of, I put Fei Li on the board. Why not? Like, she's neither a doomer nor a techno-optimist. Someone like that who has sort of a middle ground. Sort of like the Supreme Court. You want something that's a little more, I don't know. Who is anyone you would think should be on the board? Larry Summers, I don't know where he popped out of, but sure. So who would you bring on the board? Give me some names. I've given you many.
There's a lot of talented people. I would absolutely want to bring someone who really understands AI and disinformation. I think those are the biggest threats. Also, Kara, and you've said this. You said something that's really resonated with me, and that is the people that design these technologies don't put in place the protections because they've never been victims themselves. And again, we're setting up another technology that's being designed by rich white guys who don't understand what it's like to be the subject of revenge porn, or to have your family attacked, or feel physically threatened.
I think it's interesting. I think that someone who they should have on the board, a media person Barry Diller's too old, but the lawsuits around copyright, they need a media.
Barry Diller would be great on the board. I'd love to see a guy like Jonathan Haidt on the board. I think he just has such a clear blue flame.
They need tech people, though, too. They need people who understand the technology. They can't just have, I thought Lisa Su, but she's obviously a competitor in terms of the chips. Anyway, they have to be creative here and come up with names we have not heard of. And I would say young and old, too, right? Anyway, one of the things that's very clear is the effective altruism movement, something that the former OpenAI board members were vocal about. A loser here? They've been attacking me all weekend, all the effective altruists. They're not very nice people, these altruists.
Really? What have they been saying? I don't know any of them.
Oh, just like, you don't understand. I'm like, I am so not a techno optimist. It's like, are you literally know who you're talking to? They think, obviously, AI could destroy mankind. They favor safety over speed. Obviously, we favor safety. It doesn't mean you have to be slow, but
right.
They favor safety. As I wrote, one of the former board members was particularly apocalyptic about AI. I had heard that from many people. By the way, Sam Bankman-Fried was also one of the big believers and backers of effective altruism. Someone wants to call it ineffective altruism. It's really gotten a black eye. A lot of people have written about that.
It's reheated ESG, isn't it?
I guess. No, I think it's a little more complex. But it's another one of those things that pops out of Silicon Valley, and you're like, oh, just go take psychedelics.
Yeah, that we don't need to be regulated, that we have moved to a different era of philosophical grandeur where we can all still get rich and the government shouldn't get in the way? Or am I being too reductive?
Well, I'm not sure. It's that we know what's best. It's a small group of people who knows what's best for the rest of humanity. Whenever I'm with any of them, I'm like, so you're the one that's going to decide this. I feel like I'd rather have the dirty mass do it, right? Like the mass, the mob. I prefer the mob over this group any day of the week, right? And I don't like the mob that much. I don't know. One of these things pops up in Silicon Valley all the time. I find, some of the ideas are good, but making it into a movement, a cult, feels really weird. Anyway, we'll see what happens. We'll see. Maybe you'll get on the board of her. I'll get on the board.
Unlikely, Kara. That's just unlikely, but thank you.
Someone was like, Kara should be on the board. I'm like, I would be the GOP candidate before I would get on the board of OpenAI.
You check a lot of boxes, Kara.
I do. I would do it.
You check a lot of boxes.
I do. I'd be irritating to them. They don't know what I'm going to do. That's the issue. I'm not controllable.